In this episode, we feature the life and accomplishments of Dr. Clyde Tombaugh. From a farm boy with dreams to achieving one of the greatest astronomical discoveries in the 20th century. He once built telescopes from junk farm machinery, but went on to develop sophisticated equipment for the United States Army. Tombaugh was born in Streator, Illinois, and at age 16 moved with his family to Burdett, Kansas. They rented a farm there, but unfortunately were never really successful. Because of that, Clyde's dreams of a college education looked bleak. He was the oldest of 6 kids and had to drop out of school 1 year to work the fields. Kansas farmers battled dust storms and tornadoes. The year that the Tombaughs decided the profits from their farm would pay for Clyde to attend college, a hailstorm decimated the crops. Astronomy occupied a lot of Clyde Tombaugh's free time. His father and uncle nurtured that interest. When Tombaugh was young, his uncle bought a telescope from the Sears Roebuck catalog. They weren't the best scopes, however, so at age 20, Clyde set about learning how to build his own out of parts he scrounged on the farm. The tube was made of pine boards, the mount from discarded farm machinery, and the mirror he ground from a ship's porthole glass. Tombaugh would later admit the first one wasn't very good, the second one was better, and the third, well, that opened up the heavens and the future for him. Now 22 years old, Tombaugh drew the detailed sketches of objects he viewed, including Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars. Wanting a professional appraisal, in 1929 he mailed the sketches to the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. At the time, that was the only research observatory in the western United States. Astronomer Percival Lowell, who opened the observatory that bore his name in 1894, postulated in the late 1800s that a 9th planet was there to find.
This is my 9-inch reflecting telescope. The drawings I made of Mars and Jupiter with this telescope in 1928. I sent to Flagstaff, and they were impressed enough with them that they offered me a job there, and that's how I got onto the Pluto project. So this telescope really was the one that launched me into professional astronomy. This big one up here is a 16-inch F10 Newtonian, a very powerful telescope I use for planetary observations and also the moon. Now this is a 6-inch monitor telescope. This is a finder. See that aluminum thing? It measures the angle from the zenith, from the meridian. Now it's on the meridian. So you see I use tin cans to cover up my optics. I don't take very many pictures. Most of my observations are just visual.
The director, Vesto Slifer, offered Tombaugh a temporary job. Tombaugh had just enough cash for a seat on the 28-hour train ride to Arizona. He couldn't afford a sleeper, and if he failed, he certainly didn't have the return fare. On January 15, 1929, Tombaugh arrived in Flagstaff, and with no funds to rent a room, he would call a small closet-like area in the observatory the place to lay his head. The search process was tedious. Tombaugh took nightly photographs of small areas of the sky on 8x10 glass plates, and a few days later reshot the same area. Those 2 images would then be placed on what was called a blink comparator. The images would be blinked back and forth, and if an object moved against the stars, that should be the planetary target. Sounds easy, but each plate had 50,000 to 400,000 stars. In June 1929, a visiting astronomer criticized Tombaugh, intoning, "Young man, I am afraid you are wasting your time. If there were any more planets to be found, they would have been found long before this." But Slifer encouraged Tombaugh, saying, "We think he is going to develop into a useful man. He has several good qualities that are going to make up for his meager training." On February 18, 1930, after 7,000 hours of photographing and comparing, Tombaugh found a flickering image in the Gemini constellation. He would later say, "For 45 minutes I was the only person in the world who knew there was a 9th planet." Slifer ordered secrecy until the discovery was confirmed, including prohibiting Tombaugh from contacting his parents. They learned what their son had accomplished when the editor of the local paper called. Slifer made the announcement on March 13, 1930, on Lowell's 75th birthday. The question now was what to name Planet X. Percival Lowell's widow, Constance, suggested Zeus, Percival, or Constance. Others favored Cronus. Slifer liked Minerva, but an 11-year-old English schoolgirl in Oxford, Venetia Burney, suggested Pluto. the god of the dark, dank, and distant underworld, not unlike the planet's place in the solar system. Tombaugh was about to realize his dream of an education. The University of Kansas awarded him a scholarship. He entered as a 26-year-old freshman and was met with the news the astronomy department head refused him entrance into the beginning class. After all, Clyde had discovered a planet. What could a freshman astronomy class teach him? Marriage and children followed. Tombaugh earned his Bachelor's of Arts in 1936 and his Master's in 1939. He then returned to Lowell until the Army drafted him in 1943 and assigned him to teach navigation for the Navy. After World War II, the observatory lacked funds to rehire him, so Tombaugh went to work at Sands Missle Range. Among his achievements there was designing the Intercept Ground Optical Recorder, or IGOR, a telescope that tracked and photographed missiles up to 100 miles distant. One is on display at the New Mexico Museum of Space History, and another at the White Sands Missile Park. Tombaugh left White Sands in 1955 to join the New Mexico State University Las Cruces teaching staff. There, he helped found the Department of Astronomy and achieved another childhood dream of becoming a professor. He retired in 1973. In 1980, the Space Hall of Fame at the New Mexico Museum of Space History in Alamogordo inducted him. Tombaugh was 90 when he died on January 17, 1997. His many honors included the Medal of the Pioneers of White Sands Missile Range and an honorary doctorate from Northern Arizona University. The Royal Astronomical Society of England had feted him with the prestigious Jackson Gilt Medal. And in the United States, he appeared on television shows where panels had to deduce the reason for his fame. Tombaugh and his wife, Patsy, helped to found the Unitarian Universalist Church in Las Cruces. A stained glass window there pays homage to his life and career. The story doesn't end at his passing, however. In 2006, the International Astronomical Union voted to downgrade Pluto to a dwarf planet. That decision garnered quite a bit of criticism. Cartoonists even took aim at the announcement. Ironically, the downgrade occurred just 8 months after the launch of the New Horizons mission, the first spacecraft to fly close to Pluto. Launched atop a Falcon rocket, New Horizons passed the moon in less than a day compared to the 3-day flight that Apollo astronauts endured. In July 2015, which was 9 years and 3.8 billion miles after launch, New Horizons returned thousands of images before heading off to the Kuiper Belt. Pluto turned out to be the gateway to this region, which is rich in icy bodies with billions of times more water than is found on Earth. For Clyde Tombaugh, who in the latter part of his life could only watch astronauts leave planet Earth, he achieved one final accomplishment. He became a space traveler himself. New Horizons carried a small portion of his ashes, along with a note as to who he was, in case other civilizations in the future happened to come upon the spacecraft.